The numbers to call are 465-2555. That's locally, 465-2555. And the overseas number is 1-718-577-2916. 1-718-577-2916. We welcome your calls. Working for you, good afternoon. There's no one on the line. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon to your guest here.
Miss Bass.
Good
Miss
afternoon,
Bass here.
sir.
Now, correction. The last hanging we had here, the last capital punishment we had here was in November 2009. Not 2008, as was said by Miss Bass.
Okay.
Now, I got something, I think, different to how Miss Bass said that those countries that do not have capital punishment, the crime rate is very low. Well, it may look so because down here, remember in January we had six murders. And that is 6 in 1 month. That was too much in 1 month. While up there, they may not have one gunshot in a month. But then when they strike, they kill all like 50 and 60 one time. Up there where they don't have capital punishment. So I would say where there is capital punishment for murders, the crime will drop plenty lower than it is because nobody wants to dead. Nobody. And if anybody know that they're going on a vehicle, and when before you reach the destination, you're going to crash and everybody going to dead, nobody going in the vehicle. So it is with the capital punishment. If you got 10 persons in the square, waiting to see 3 men go on the gallows in the square. From the moment the first one neck pop, the square might only have in the officials who officiate around the hanging. And those of us who agree with capital punishment, we will stand up and what the others get it. But the majority will scamper because they do not want to face that kind of thing. So I disagree with that. Where the country where they don't have the capital punishment, the crime rate is less than those who have it. Yeah, that's my thing today. Oh, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, before I go, one question. What guarantee do we have that those people who bought our passport before the government change, that they are not aligned with ISIS? How can we know that? Okay, I'll listen out here. Thanks for my call.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon to host and guest.
Good afternoon.
Throughout the months, there have been calls from different persons for the government to identify persons who are holders of diplomatic passports. It has not been done, but I'm wondering if there's any specific reason why it hasn't been done or why it can't be done, for one. And the next thing is in relation to capital punishment. I don't believe it should be taken off the books because there can be certain crimes which are so horrendous that you just have to conduct capital punishment. For example, if somebody walks into a church one of these days with a gun and starts shooting, madman or otherwise, I don't believe that person should just get a jail sentence. I believe they should be removed from the face of the earth. I'd like to hear your guest's comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Bass.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams, and thanks to our callers. I would like to address the first caller, and I don't think I said that the crime rate in some countries that do not have the death penalty is reduced. But however, I must point out that in countries where we have persons committing mass murders, actually in one of those countries the death penalty has not been repealed. It is still on the books and it is still being practiced. My ministry doesn't deal with the citizenship by investment program, so I would refrain from commenting on any issues relating to that. I don't think I have that authority to comment on issues relating to that. That is not under my purview. The same matter, refers to holders of different diplomatic passports. It is the Ministry of National Security under the leadership of the Prime Minister that issues diplomatic passports. So I think that when they would have done an evaluation or an assessment of who have diplomatic passports and they think that it is beneficial to refer that information, relay that information to the public, then they would do so. Yes. With respect to capital punishment and the thought of the second caller that it should not be annulled, or that we should not remove it from our books. I think that there are differing views in the community, and I think it is opportune for a national discussion on this issue. Based on what has been happening in terms of crime, it is doubtful whether there would be enough support to remove it from the books. But I think that, it is always good to have a national dialogue on these issues. And perhaps the youth, the national parliament could begin a discussion on this. But we will find that we have persons of differing views, whether for religious purposes or otherwise. They would be varied across the board.
Good, Miss Bass. We have no callers right now, but I find it rather interesting. Working for you, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Working for you?
Yes, we're listening to you. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Sure.
I would like to know, okay, based on what the lady said a few minutes ago, not just immediate, but in her discussion before the calls, she made a mention of about the government here does not discriminate. It tries not to discriminate, right? Okay, fair enough. But one thing that jumped out to me is when she mentioned about this L and G. I guess this is the lesbian and gay movement thing.
LGBT,
now
yes.
My question is, when we're going to look at this federation, who among us here are lesbians and homosexuals that is making a stir in this country to say that they have rights that are violated? So I want to know where this came into the discussion, where the United Nations is concerned, and who are these lesbians and gays that they're referring to in terms of discrimination. And I want to know from the lady, if you were present there at the meeting or whatever they had, did you remind the United Nations that we have persons here in the Federation, and we have a group specifically that is called the Rastafarians. They use marijuana, which is a natural plant that is given by our Creator for our use. Did they remind the United Nations that this federation is discriminated against? Do they know about that discrimination in this country? They know everything because they know what is happening in the federation. So are they aware that this country has been discriminated and is discriminated against? Where this marijuana is concerned, and there are persons here who are forbidden from using it because the laws are on the books. They have buggery on the books. This thing about criminalizing marijuana is on the books. How is it concentration is placed on lesbian and gay rights and not marijuana in terms of decriminalizing it? Another thing in terms of the capital punishment or hanging, we're talking about those that are on the books and, there's no sign that murders are down, etc. But how often do we hang people here in the Federation? That is where the difference is. How often? We don't hang people here in the Federation. So I don't see in which way that sort of information in terms of if we have to look at it as in terms of statistics, it holds, right? And I want to know also from the United Nations, were they reminded about all of the human abuses that happens, let's say, in America, what do they say? Do they punish or penalize America for all of these murders of these young men of different ethnic, of a specific ethnic group there or race in America? Do they? Because I think the United Nations is America and America is the United Nations. Another thing, we pride ourselves on being sovereign. To me, it seems like we have no sovereignty because the United Nations is telling us what we should do. To me, it is a form of control. So it's like you are going there to explain to them how you are controlling your household, right?
Okay.
And your household according to how they dictate. And finally, before we go, national dialogue. How important will that be to us? Because there are certain issues that we keep talking in the media. To me, that is national dialogue in one form. Who listens to the citizens with what they want? For example, one example, the marijuana. Who listens? How come for a sovereign nation that is not dealt with? Well, we're talking and we're pushing to have dialogue about gays and lesbians. So who really listens, or who our leaders are listening to? Is it the citizens, or is it some other external force or groups or organizations?
Okay.
So which is important to us as a sovereign nation.
Okay,
right.
caller, thank you. Well, you have quite a mouthful there. I think, though, some of what she touched on, let us put them within context, because I think we're in an age of globalization, and as you mentioned, for example, the theme, forging new partnerships, strengthening networks, sustainable growth, and economic development. Mm-hmm. Development is something that is ongoing, and we are a part of the United Nations body. And I think that the caller was basically saying that it seems as though they are telling us what to do. Mm-hmm. But the reason why we are a member is that we have a voice. And you being a part of this thing, we have a voice, we can share our opinions, and so with this body and so on. And we must be respected. As small as we are, we still have a voice, but we recognize that we are not an island or a country by ourselves, and that we are a part of a body. So the collective and so on comes into play. No. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Williams, you said it well. Globalization has a lot to do with what is happening in the world today. St. Kitts-Nevis is an active participant. We are a member of a lot of multilateral organizations, including the United Nations. We must point out that the LGBT is one that the United Nations came up with. Mm-hmm. It is one of the groups that is examined whenever we are looking at human rights. That is one of the groups. In our national report, we did mention the Rastafarian group.
Yes.
When in our consultations prior to writing the first report, we had to consult with civil society. The Rastafarian group or organization was invited to that consultation. They voiced their opinion about any discrimination they perceived to be taking place, and that was also included in the report, and that was presented to the working group of the Human Rights Council. With respect to, I think the caller said, anybody who tells those nations about so on. So I think in what we participated in was the UPR. It is to present a national report and not to criticize or examine any other body's report. And so that was not the forum for that. I think that there are other fora that allows and permits that sort of discussion, but the one that I attended did not allow for that. However, I think that you said we have some obligations as an international, as a member of the international community. We do have some obligations to fulfill, And we would want, as a nation of this family of nations, to be fulfilling our roles. Yes, sometimes it may appear that things are being imposed on us. Because of the realities, there are some things that we have to abide by, but we do have a voice in these organizations, and if there are things that we perceive to be inhibitive, things that are repressive or suppressive, then we have a voice that we can speak out against that. I think she asked a question about what form national dialogue could take. Yes, the calling programs, the media could cover some issues, but I think there should be more formalized discussions. There could be symposiums, there could be lectures, there could be town hall meetings, and these are forms of national dialogue. And I think the people of the nation, when they speak, the government will listen and should listen, but it has to be maybe perhaps a more formalized form of discussion or national dialogue. I hope I have addressed her questions.
Right, but one of the things to Ms. Bass is that we are here speaking about foreign affairs and strengthening networks, forging new partnerships, all within the context of growth.
Yes.
Sustainable growth, economic development, human development, sustainable development. And the reality is that as a country, we cannot remain insular.
You're correct.
And we have to think in terms of international relations. And an important component, if you would agree with me, I think, is that of, for example, we speak about capital punishment.
Yes.
But a deeper issue, isn't it, that we must have a basic respect for human life and the right to life, which is a human right.
Yes, and even in our Constitution, Mr. Williams, it talks about having rights, but yes, your rights must be respected, but you must also be responsible.
That is correct.
So there is a dichotomy there with the term in terms of human rights. You must expect that your rights should be respected, but you must be responsible also.
Rights
And
must
so
go with responsibilities.
Responsibility. And I think oftentimes we do not look at that other aspect of human rights.
And then even in terms of our relations with other countries and so on, the person mentioned in terms of the our passports, our economic citizens and so on. And I can recall that the whole thing about respect and tolerance and so on for others and so on, that comes into play because we have banned people from our program, and this is basically because of human rights violations, disrespect for other countries and so on in their actions and so on. So the whole thing about human rights plays an important role, if you would agree with me, I think, in the whole thing of international relations and foreign affairs.
One of the things I've noted in my own research as well, and it's commonly known in the international arena, that a lot of the aid that we receive, in considering whether we would receive aid or not, one's human rights are examined. And so it is critical that people become aware of not only what their rights are, but how do we measure up in the international community with respect to human rights. And so I thank you for raising the issue today, because I think that we can continue this discussion that is very important. Not many persons are aware of their rights, and not many persons are aware of how we measure in the international community in terms of this. So I think that this will start some discussion.
Yes.